Hi guys, Johnny Good here for realhomestudio.com. Today, taking a look at what you need to know about mastering in 2022. Just before we dive straight in, I want to remind you guys to please like and subscribe up to the channel here on YouTube. If you've got something to say, please do drop it in the comments box below. Now, over the last 20 years or so, when I've been working within the industry, I don't think there's been a more debated topic than mastering. Things have certainly leveled out somewhat, excuse the pun, since normalization was introduced on online streaming platforms. Before then, we had all the loudness wars, and we had some extremely punchy masters, putting it mildly, some real crazy masters coming out. So with online streaming platforms like Spotify having normalization in place these days, you would think that everything was a lot more straightforward for us music producers. Unfortunately though, there still seems to remain an awful lot of confusion about mastering, so I wanted to make a video today that was straightforward, aimed at you musicians out there. I'm very aware that the vast majority of you home studio users are musicians first rather than technicians. I'll certainly put myself in that camp. Let's dive straight in. Let's take a look at normalization first off. Now, that was introduced onto online streaming platforms in an attempt to eliminate the issue of the loudness wars, and it's been really successful. What we had before was a lot of masters coming out hotter than the next master, and things were getting really crazy and really damaging the quality of music. The issue is we're drawn to loud masters, so if you have a brilliant sounding dynamic master against a over compressed master but really punchy and loud, we're going to be drawn, particularly in like pop and rock music, towards the loud one. So normalization was introduced to eliminate that issue and give a much fairer playing field for music producers, and also for the benefit of the listeners, so you're not constantly on that dial all the time, much like how compression is applied on the radio. So Spotify, as an example, normalizes to -14 LUFS. That's loudness units relative to full scale. Always find that really hard to say. And they do vary a little bit. You can check that out online. But we're going to just talk about Spotify and use that as an example. So here's the thing. If you were mastering a piece of music that you knew was only ever going to be played and streamed on Spotify, then mastering it to -14 LUFS makes total sense. You're going to get a great sounding dynamic master. But here's the thing. In real life, that's not always the case. So as well as streaming platforms, for an example, your music might find itself on someone's desk being compared to another piece of music. Say you're applying for management, or you're working with a label or with someone else, and you're on a short list, and someone might have a selection of downloads. Yours just isn't going to stand out if it's amongst 8 other masters which are mastered to say -8 LUFS. You're going to have a much quieter master, and that's the same case for if your music's being played in clubs and venues. Now, I work a lot in stock music, and that really is the case in stock music, where I'm going to sites which aren't being normalized, and also clients are downloading test versions as well and checking it against other versions. Now, if you've got a master, again, which is mastered to -14 LUFS against a master that's at -8 LUFS, the client's more often than not going to be drawn towards that louder master, and you're going to miss out on that sale, and you're going to struggle to show up in the marketplace. And don't forget good old CDs as well, of course. If you're a band out there or a soloist out there playing in pubs or clubs, venues, festivals, you might still be on your merch stand selling some CDs, because it's another great way to get your music out there still. And once again, you're going to be wanting your masters to stand up when someone invariably downloads the music off that CD. It's just not going to stand up against other commercial releases. So it's for that reason, if you're going to make one master rather than having to make a whole bunch of masters, which just seems like a total headache, that the industry standard seems to have settled around -8 LUFS. I tend to master anywhere between -10, -8 LUFS, anywhere around there where I feel that a master sounds its best. Another thing to look at when you're mastering is to make sure that you get the ceiling of the master with a -1 decibel true peak level. Now, most online platforms will ask for this if you check out their FAQs. That's to give you a bit of a safe space in the headroom. When your master's getting converted and it's getting encoded and compressed, it can create some more gain. And if you haven't got that ceiling, you're going to encounter clipping, and you could get some weird and unpleasant sounds arriving on your master. Now you can download a metering plugin called Loudness Meter 2, where you can monitor the integrated LUFS, the short-term LUFS, and the dynamic range. So the integrated LUFS is going to be the average of the whole song. It'll take into account the quiet parts and the loud parts and give you an average readout. The short term will take into account what's gone on in the short term and give you an idea what's going on in the quiet parts, and then you can check it out what's going on in the loud parts. And crucially, the dynamic range, which is going to give you a readout of the difference between the quiet parts and the loud parts, so you can check that you haven't overcrushed your master and that chorus is still going to pop just as well as you'd hoped. A great website to check out is loudnesspenalty.com, where they've got a loudness penalty analyzer online you can use for free. Simply export out your master and drag the file across, and very quickly it'll give you a readout of how much of a level penalty your master is going to incur across a variety of online streaming platforms. Now, if you want a bit of help along your mastering journey, there's a couple of plugins I definitely recommend. Of course, iZotope's Ozone, their Elements still being relatively inexpensive, is an excellent mastering suite to get started. Also strongly recommend from Plugin Alliance their BX Master Desk Classic, I believe it is, which is still available for free. That's a plugin I use all the time. I rate that really highly. I think it sounds great. Now, if you'd rather not use like a one-stop shop mastering plugin, then of course you can use the plugins which are within your stock plugins, so your DAW, or look at developers like Analog Obsession. There's a whole ton of great free plugins out there. You're going to be wanting a limiter, you're going to be wanting some sort of tonal shaping EQ, and you're going to be wanting quite possibly a compressor too. And you want to be using that compression much more for tonal shaping rather than more compression. Really look at it, just flicking that needle and using a compressor which you like the sound of when you run your mix through it. Now, there's a number of ways you can approach your mastering process. Obviously, the gold standard would be to have a separate mastering engineer, but that's pretty expensive. That used to be the way to do it, for good reason, because another set of ears, a lot of expensive gear, and someone who really knows the ropes around mastering is the gold standard. But of course, in a home studio, the jobs are going to fall to us. So typically what I do like to do, particularly if I'm working with a client or working with a specific song, is certainly do the mastering on a separate day on a new file. So rather than just dumping something at the end of the chain on a mix bus, I much rather treat it like I'm going to be the mastering engineer for that specific project. So I certainly wouldn't want to do that on the same day. I want to let my ears have a bit of time to freshen up, and then I want to bringing that into a new project and really treating that as a new project. Now, of course, if you're working really quickly, and that's how I work with stock music and have a quick turnaround, there's nothing wrong with putting something on the end of the mix bus. This is where I really like to use a plugin like the Plugin Alliance Master Desk Classic, which I'll just put at the end of the chain. I'll get it to the level where I want it, and I'll continue with the work. When I'm working with stock music, I turn stuff around really quickly, and that works really well for me. But again, if you want to give more time, I would strongly recommend allowing yourself some time with some fresh ears to approach your mastering process as a whole new project, rather than mixing and mastering all on the same day. And lastly, I want you to remind yourself that you're a musician first, not a technician. Mastering's really easy to get bogged down in with all the technicals. It's really easy to get a bit low as well when you've done all that work and you don't feel it's quite standing up against commercial releases. This is one long, big learning process. Move on to the next track. Take what you've learned from working on this track and then keep moving, working towards getting better mixes and better masters which work together in synergy to get you closer to the quality sounds of those commercial releases. So there you go, that's my take on mastering in 2022. Hope you found this video helpful. Remember, if you've got something to say about mastering in 2022, and I'm sure you guys absolutely do, don't forget to drop your comments in the comments box below. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and remember, I've got a free 6-part mini course, the Virtual Console, which is going to get you on the fast track to musical mixing from your home studio. Links are all down in the description box below. Go have yourselves an absolutely great day.